All right, we'll go ahead and call our Monday, March 11, 2024 Roanoke County School Board Budget Work Session to order. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Item 2.01, Budget Work Session number 3, Ms. Susan Peterson.
Provide a follow-up and a couple of items, and so I'll go through a few of the items that you have requested me to bring back. And then you have in front of you a book and a list again, kind of similar as last time. The book is the full PowerPoint, and then the truncated list that might be easier to look at is self-standing at your seats. Anything in yellow on the list has been changed, and I'll briefly mention that as we go through. So first off, with the follow-up items, Mr. Hudson had asked about the employee non-resident tuition. We currently have 142 students that are of employees, and 92 of them are at the elementary school, secondary, or 50 are at the secondary schools. We charge $229 for elementary and $371 for the secondary. You will see I have two different numbers broken out. The school board retains all but $100 of the tuition fee, and the school itself retains $100. And so when we make this change, in total, the school board's revenue will go down by $25,418 based on the current numbers as they stand, and the schools will have $14,200 less. Individually, the school numbers will vary anywhere between maybe having no impact if they have no students, or some of the schools that have the most students, maybe $1,300, $1,800 would be the biggest impact to an individual school.
Mr. Chair, I like the idea of what you brought up the other day, and I'll tell you why. Because if a teacher's willing to come from another area to teach in our school system, I think that's the least of a benefit we could give them is for their child to go to that school that they bring them to for free, and it's only $200 or $300. So it's not like it's a huge amount. Now I get that it comes to $40,000 in our budget, but in this particular year, I hope we could find $40,000 to make that gap. And what I would also suggest is that our schools not lose the revenue, that we make that up, make it a $40,000. See if we can find a way to push that back to those schools that they don't lose that revenue. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
The trick with that is, I thought about this, I agree, because the schools do get a piece of this. That's based on what the current enrollment is, in terms of building this or ongoing budget. It'd be tricky to say, well, school X over here currently has 3 non-resident students. That might be different next year, you know what I'm saying? So in terms of replacing that, that's kind of tricky as far as making that fair across the board, but the only challenge.
Well, we talked before, and you're saying that it really wouldn't have much of a fiscal impact on the schools themselves.
Right. I mean, it's $100 per student. So if you're a school that has, 4 of them, then that's $400 you don't have. But
That is a big deal to some of our principals, I will say.
Or also, for example, trying to give them more money for paper and stuff like that. So there's some things we're trying to do to offset, more for athletics, or putting that back. So
Right.
it's just something you all can obviously do what you want. I'm just saying 25,000 is what we'd have to replace out of our general revenue. That's not a huge amount. If we want to do something for the schools, I would just caution and say, well, let's try to do that in a way that's not necessarily just based on the here and now, because it can change from year to year.
Well, but I think that's an easy enough number to follow. You just gave us, and I don't have it in front of me, but unless you've got it right here, but you didn't, you got 5 at this school, you got 2 at that school, 3 at that school.
Right.
Couldn't that be an underlying, they just get, we have a line item for this, it's 40,000 right now. Next year it might be 37,000, next year it might be 42, whatever, and that number 500 goes back to that school, 200 goes back to that school.
And literally base it on what their enrollment is.
I mean, I don't know why that would be that big a
We could do
deal.
that.
You could do that?
Based
Okay.
on actual numbers versus perpetually only given to the ones who currently have
Oh,
them.
yeah, no,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so, because that might switch.
Sure.
It may be, 5 at that school instead of,
You might get one more 1 year versus the next year based on the
Right.
numbers of the previous year.
It wouldn't be too tough for us to base it on year to year on actual numbers.
Okay.
And that's the ballpark, so we can budget for that.
I would like, unless somebody has an opinion otherwise, I mean, I think it's it's not much, but it's a little benefit of a teacher not, what's the high school, 371, and the elementaries are 229. So it's a little benefit to our teachers.
What do we charge for non-resident?
1,000.
It's down to
It's
1,000.
1,000.
You can
It's a
make up a
something.
little
I mean,
bit there if you needed to. I mean, if you
Yeah, I
rate,
think we can absorb that.
you think so? I mean, I just think it's important to incentivize for our teachers,
I agree totally.
staff.
Well, then you do get the ADM for that student, right? So there's a benefit there to us. It helps us drive enrollment up, maybe. To be quite honest, I don't know how many teachers are gonna have, I don't know, 371 versus 229. It's actually a pretty decent low price anyway. It's not $1,000. So I don't know if that's a negative. If I was a teacher to say, oh gee, I don't want my kids to go to this school and to pay $229 for a great education, but it is a perk.
It's a perk.
It is a bonus.
Well, and
It's a
I-
little something.
I know they work beyond their calculated hours, far beyond $229 or $371 a
And
year.
this is a pittance.
It
for what
is.
we would love to give you, but.
Right.
But at least it's a little something. You're coming out of a district, so you're traveling, whether it's from Franklin or Bedford or,
It's a fringe benefit.
yeah, it's a little something.
And I mean, colleges do it. So I mean, I can't imagine why.
And then we get that ADM too, and I can't remember what that amount is, but
Right.
It's not enough.
what is that now, Susan? Our ADM for each pupil?
About 5,700.
57? I figured 55. That's fine. I'm just trying to get so we get that. So it's worth it, I think, to
Give or take 1,000.
I don't think that's incentive for anybody to do that, but,
Who knows?
yeah, right.
Comment?
Who
Good
knows?
point. Yep.
Yeah, I think it's a good opportunity. It may help us recruit some better teachers. I would hope that with all, just like all our other non-resident students, there are certain expectations grade-wise and behavior-wise that if they don't, are there expectations in place for non-residents? And they would have to follow those,
I agree
certainly.
with that too, yeah.
It's a good point. I think we probably already follow that, but it's a good point.
Because we don't want troublemakers in there, non-residents. Not that I
I hope
expect
that
that,
our,
but
yeah, that our employees would take care of that.
you would hope.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I think that's a great suggestion, Brent. I know you brought that up probably a year ago, and we didn't address it, but I think it's, now that we have those numbers, it just makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you,
So,
Susan.
do we need to, are you just gonna make that a part of a budget?
We'll have
We
to
don't
change
It'll be part of-
policy,
That's
but
what I was
also
gonna
it's reflected in the
ask,
budget.
Okay,
Yeah,
so we do need to vote on it, okay.
yeah. I mean, not going to it today, but I mean, when we
No,
do
but
policy
does that
changes.
go in consent?
If you want
that
the
we-
consent, I'm okay with
Well,
it.
it'll be part of the budget.
Okay, so
And
it's
then-
still on the budget,
and
not the
then-
We need to
consent.
change our
Yeah,
policy
and then we'll
Okay.
change the student fees
for next year.
at the, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
That's true, because it is a fee, it's in the budget process, so if they
Yeah.
approve it, it automatically changes policy.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
true.
Okay,
That- that's it,
that
yeah.
was my question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of change them all at one time.
Okay, thank you.
So then, the other thing, Mr. Greenway wanted to see are our health insurance reserves. So the next page shows the actual dollars themselves, but this graph, the purple, let me get my laser pointer going. This shows the revenue in any given year. So I went back to 2020, and going forward through 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25. So the revenue is the first bar, the expenditures is the second bar, and then the line going through shows how our insurance reserve balance has declined. So as of last fiscal year, we had 6.4 million in insurance reserves. As of February of '24, that has reduced down to 4.6 million based on current activity. And then next year, with the budgeting, we're budgeting 22.6 million in revenue and 24.2 million in expenditures. And so that number is gonna come down to about 2.9 million.
So Ms. Peterson, on 24, why does the revenue not match up more to the 2020 through 23?
Because that's only through February. We have March, April,
Oh, I
May,
see. So you're
and
not,
June.
okay.
We've got 4 more
So
months
that's
to go.
skewed a little bit. And then 25 is projected.
Correct.
I think it'd be helpful to have the projected for 24 maybe, but anyway, that's where we're at now. Do we expect at the end of 24 that it shifts up any or shifts down some?
If anything, I suspect it'll shift down.
Okay. Okay.
I think the trend in this gap right here is not gonna close. It's, if anything, it's gonna get bigger,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Gotcha.
My
Which
question
is-
to Ms. Peterson, in our conversations before the meeting, obviously the graph shows our balance, and she was reminding me what the recommendation was from our consultants is about 3.1 minimum,
Yeah.
and we're getting
So that'd be
there and
close.
below, so it is a concern in terms of paying attention to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I guess the secondary part of that question is, because everything seems to stay fairly steady the last 4 years, just some just some catastrophic claims?
Well, they wouldn't be catastrophic, but I think in talking with our insurance consultant, what's happening is the claims that are over 100,000, the number of those claims are really much higher than they have been. We have reinsurance starting at 250,000. And so
So the catastrophic's covered.
so the catastrophic covers anything over 250, but the ones between 100 and 250, when the quantity of those claims goes up, I think that's where you're seeing this driving. And I've had discussions with her as to, is this just a blip for us? Is this a one-time only year and hopefully we'll go back to normal? And she said, that's really hard to say. It may be that we just have a really bad year this year, and everybody who didn't go get their self checked out after COVID because they were avoiding going to the doctor, maybe this was the big year everybody went and had a bunch of procedures done, and maybe next year it'll come back down. But we don't know if that's the case or if this is truly the new norm. I mean, the other thing to think about is year after year after year, we've had 6 to 7% increase in medical trend rates. And we, based on what I showed you last year, there's only been 2 years in the past 5 years that we've actually increased the insurance rates. And so we've really eaten that medical trend. And so my fear is the medical trends have just risen so much, and we just have not parlayed that out in our premiums.
Okay.
What have we borrowed from the health insurance reserves in the past to pay for? I know we've done that a couple times. Well, for what type of items?
Just bonuses and payroll is really all we've ever shifted out of the health insurance fund.
Well, you can see our reserve has stayed pretty steady, even doing that the last 4 years. It's not until this year that it really looks like it's flipped.
It really is. This is the critical, painful year.
And I wonder if that's, just thinking out loud, health cost overall, everything's risen, right? And so maybe now, where 3 to 4 years ago, all the way up, maybe your normal procedures, those procedures that were 60 to 75,000 are now 100 to 125,000. So you do have, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, the contract was just renewed, right?
Yes.
Or awarded?
We're in the second year of it. And really the contract does not, the premiums aren't determined by the contract. We really contract out the administration since we're self-insured. So then the next, I won't beleaguer this screen, but this is the report you're used to seeing on board docs. This is what fed into the graph. These are the actual numbers for insurance reserves. But that's really more for your information. So then the next one, I think there was a question as to seeing what the annual impact to the employee is. So this page and the next page, this page is the KeyCare 1000. The next page is the KeyCare 2000. The first column shows our current premium, employee-only portion. And then you see the monthly amount broken down between employee, employer, and total. Then the projected premiums for this plan for the annual basis. And then the last column shows the difference that the employee will feel on an annual basis if they chose this. So this is the KeyCare 1000 plan, which has the lower deductibles. And then this would be the KeyCare 2000 plan, which would be the higher deductibles. And so on the next slide, I'd like to play a little video for you. Mr. Bradshaw and his team, and I actually watched a demonstration by this company. We are looking to purchase this program that will help our employees make the decision. It will ask the employee a bunch of questions. We will preload all of our premium rates into it, and it will provide an analysis for our employee of what best plan would provide, what the plans would provide on a cost basis. So let me play this video for you.
Hi, I'm Alex. Let's talk about benefits. Because great employee benefits make you stand out. So you work hard to put together just the right ones. And you could use some help making sure everyone knows how to use them. Someone who can give your employees year-round, round-the-clock, personalized benefits support. That's me. And here's what I do. When someone new joins your team, and when open enrollment arrives, I have a conversation with each of your employees. I get to know them, who they're covering, what they need, and their financial goals. Then, I show them which option might save them the most money and help them make decisions to get the most bang for their buck. And your buck, too. I'm here to support the benefits journey 24/7 in those real moments that matter. And everything I do is designed to have a positive, measurable impact on your employees' choices, using a proven recipe of behavioral science, everyday language, and a dash of fun. You offer great benefits, I make those benefits easy. And that saves time and money, which makes everyone happy. It's as easy as that.
So we feel like providing this would help our employees make the best decision for them. Any questions on any of that?
When would that go out? Would that kind of go out like as we roll out the new benefits to each employee?
It would go out with open enrollment, yes. And then it would be in existence for any new employee after that point.
Are there any options that would allow us to keep those reserves at 3.1 like recommended? I mean, what would it take to not get below that health insurance recommendation level?
We could look at the premiums and increase them.
Is that about the only option?
Really, yeah. Or either that or shifting more of the cost to the employee, which is not a good. And the only other thing would be just transfer money from the general fund over to the health insurance fund. So that may be what we want to consider coming down the pike if the General Assembly provides more funding.
Otherwise, it might be prudent to kind of like see what the trend, if they see if the trend continues or not before we.
I think we would be comfortable through next year. I wouldn't get too excited at this point, but next year when we get here, if we were seeing the same really large claim expenses, then I think we really need to look at maybe a transfer or something.
I think it's gonna keep going up because hospitals are taking on more free care. Someone's gotta pay.
I know I've talked to a couple other superintendents where they offer plans that are with even higher deductible, you know, for people who want the premium. And I don't know, to what extent do you play the role of, okay, we as an employer know that it may not be a good idea for you to have such a high deductible. I mean, but take our younger employees who may not have a lot of medical stuff, but it's always a risk, right? So, but do you offer, you know, a $3,000 deductible plan? Just throwing that out there because I know another locality has that,
I totally agree.
at a lower premium. I mean, is that an option for us to even look at, like have 3 levels? And I don't know the answer to that I was asking. I should have asked you before, sorry.
No, I mean, we could definitely look at doing that. The concern is trying to figure out who's gonna move to which plan. Because at the end of the day, we've got $22 million of claims costs we've gotta cover. And so whether that is through the lowest deductible versus the highest deductible, we would still need to, I'm concerned that our employees are gonna look at these numbers and say, well, you know what, I wanna go to the $2,000 plan and not stay in the current plan, and then we may not make enough money because the premium's
That's what
lower.
you're saying.
So, I mean, that is a concern as well. Right now, we have projected that 20% of employees will move to the higher deductible plan, and 80% will stay paying more for the lower deductible plan. If that shifts, then our costing would shift as well.
Yeah, and I hear what you're saying. I still think there's an opportunity to look at that though, because there are some people that will not go to the doctor for whatever, and then there are healthy people that don't need, a lot, especially in the younger years. And so if you take, I guess what you're saying is if you take out the $1,000, the key care thousands to a 3,000 or 4,000, then the premiums go down, and that doesn't go into our reserves to keep bolstering that. But here's what I would say, and I know this is a tough balancing act, but what is best for our employees? Because if there are options, and again, I don't know, you know more about this than I do, but from what I've been told about, is it Obamacare or government care or whatever it is that there's not a lot covered in that as well. And I don't know I don't know this much about it, but the option for our folks to have something that covers higher deductible, and they can pay or get an HSA with it, maybe that they cover it. And if they don't have it for 2 or 3 years, then that builds a balance to where they have that deductible anyway. I think healthcare, maybe is more evolving and challenging, but there's got to be some systems out there. So we do this every 3 years, is it?
Well, we can look at, if we're just gonna change, if we stay with an HRA and change the deductibles, we can do that in any renewal year because we're gonna stay with the same provider. If we wanna add an HSA, we probably need to wait, and I need to have discussions with the county and with our insurance consultant, because that's a whole different plan altogether.
I'm just saying, I think we need to maybe look at a common, again,
Sure.
you know this, you do it. We trust you, obviously, but I'm just saying I know that when I was in it, it wasn't crazy like it is now, but it was evolving all the time as well. We went from a Cadillac plan where you had everything covered and, trying to tell people now and everything's, to going on up to now it's deductible, whatever. So I just think there's got to be a combination, but there are some of our folks that are paying that rarely use the doctor. And that's a shame that they're paying the higher premiums, but then you got to balance that going back to our reserves. So I get it. Just anything you can do to help them, I think so.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. How many of our employees take advantage of our health insurance programs? Because, I'm guessing a lot of our teachers are women who maybe have their run off their husband's insurance, perhaps. I'm just curious. Have we seen it go up or down, or has it stayed the same?
We've stayed about the same.
Stayed the same, okay.
And I'm sorry, I don't have these numbers off the top of my head.
Okay. But a
But I
significant
can get
amount?
that- I can get that for you.
Yeah, because I think that might be just an interesting number.
Yeah.
If it's increased or changed.
We've stayed pretty steady.
Okay,
Like, I think maybe 20 more
okay.
from year to year. Like,
From year to year, okay.
Pretty steady. What do you?
I agree.
You think?
Okay.
Well, it is what it is, but it's painful for everybody.
Right.
She did run that scenario you've asked for as far as pay increases versus health insurance premium, but on a family plan, so she's got that as well.
Yeah,
Right.
so the next one, what I did with this one, because if you remember, the last time I brought back the first 2 columns, which was basically assuming someone was hired in '24 and was put on the pay plan at a $45,000 a teacher. And we looked at the difference of if we gave a 1% scale shift higher and charged a 3% premium increase every year, we came down to the number of, over the course of an employee's lifetime, they would save $543,000. I went ahead and thought, what a good idea. I should have just done this based off of the next year rates. And so I went ahead and did that. Since we're looking at a scale shift of 2.15, I went ahead and started the teacher on the 45,967, which is 2.15% higher than the 45,000. Same exact scenario though, 1.6% step differential. If the employee helped subsidize the insurance, then we gave an extra percent to the scale shift each year, and we charged a 3% premium. I dropped in what the single premium under the KeyCare 1000 would be, what the single premium under the KeyCare 2000 would be, what the family premium under the KeyCare 1000, and the family premium under the KeyCare 2000. So I worked out all the numbers, came down, and under the single wellness, it was about the same savings. Under the single wellness for KeyCare 2000, it was a little bit more, $555,297. The family wellness still saw savings over the course of their lifetime, but the KeyCare 1000 only saw $385,733, and the KeyCare 2000 would see $432,951. So still savings, but obviously not as much.
So we would do a 3% every year?
This is just for,
Or is this a 3%
It's
increase
just an
each year?
example.
This is just an
3%,
example.
Assuming a 3% increase in the premium, and assuming only a 1%, which we usually do more in the
Right.
scale shift. I mean, it's just an example, but
Right.
yeah.
we usually do even better.
I'm not opposed to it if it does create a situation where the employee's going to get a better VRS at the end.
Yeah, and so I think what this proves is we probably need to come back with a premium increase every year. Start, like, obviously, we're gonna have an increase this year just because the claims.
Well, that's what I was going to
warrant
say.
it.
If we have a 20% increase, like, well, I don't know what the percentage is. It's pretty high though for this year.
It is.
And then we add a 3% on top of that.
Well, we wouldn't do that for the current year. This is assuming the following year it would go up, start going up. And 3%, like Dr. Nicely explained, is just an assumption that we plugged in to show the effect.
I think if we do that, we definitely need to project that to the employees and be very transparent about what we're doing so they're not getting the wrong idea that they're losing when they're going to actually be winning.
Yeah, because a 1% of your salary is very different than 3% of a smaller annual premium amount.
Right, especially over 30 years. So is this something we would be looking at for this budget, next budget? Like, what are we?
Well,
Well,
as far
we're-
as she is recommending the 3%, the 3% in the health insurance one?
Well, I would be recommending these rates.
Okay. You don't know what the percentage increase is?
It's gonna be different because we shifted some of the individual premium amounts,
But
but
you took into consideration those rates when you did out your example.
yeah. So this year, we would be looking at these, and if you want me to go back to the healthcare consultant and ask her if we had a third option, I mean, I can certainly look into that if you want me to look into that as well.
I mean, it can hurt, can it? I mean, I know it makes more work for you, and it's not my intent, but I just wonder if it's worth giving our employees the third option.
If we did that, what would you want the rates to be? Would you want it to be a?
0.
Well, the 2000's at 644.56, which I
For the
think
employee.
right now, do you know what the rate is right now for the 1,000? Because since that's all we offer for a family, I'm just comparing the family because obviously that's going to be the
In
highest
the
rate.
first column?
It's there.
So what is that? Okay, 570, or I guess 868. Is that what that is?
Yeah.
868.
Which for a family, it's 7,487 for the year. Would be this number. And so I guess what I need to know is, right now I've parlayed to you a 1,000, 2,000 deductible, and then a 2,000, 4,000 deductible. Do you want me to look at a 3,000, 6,000 deductible, or a 4,000, 8,000 deductible? Like, what would be that third tier that you would want us to look into?
Well, you were saying the other districts are offering 3?
I know there's one. Is there anybody who does 4, Susan? Or
Well, we have, someone does a 3.6 and a 2.4. Someone does a 2.4, we have a 3.6, a 5.10, a 2.4, and a 1.2.
So not many are offering 1.2 is what I hear you saying.
No, and I had given this sheet, this comparison of our neighbors to you at the last
Right.
meeting. And you can see
Darn, I forgot
we've got a
that sheet.
2.4 and a
I had it with me too.
3.6.
Tell you what, I wouldn't mind a 1-2.
You know,
Wish I
1.2
sped.
is awesome.
Yeah.
I wonder if, here's the only thought I had with it was that, you know, we've got the catastrophic if you go above the 250,000, right? Why not give a higher deductible?
Like a 5-10.
option? Yeah, or a 4 or 5, something in that range is what I was thinking.
Well,
But that gives them.
it would
gives
probably
them-
cut it in half, right? Would you go from,
And I
Yeah.
don't know that, I mean, if an employee, this is gonna be the driver, if employees understand it well enough, you know, the ones that have the ability to do the 4,000 and save that rate, and maybe they don't use the doctor that often, it's a good option. You just don't want people that use the doctor a lot that, or maybe have chronic medical needs or what have you, to think that's the better option.
And that's why we're recommending, we're gonna invest in Alex. So the voice that you heard with Alex, that is who will talk to all of our employees.
it is very
It's
confusing.
an
It is
AI.
It's so confusing.
It
And
is confusing.
he will ask specifically, how old are you? How many prescriptions do you take? How often do you go to the doctor? Do you have ongoing chronic issues?
That's an amazing tool.
Do you have
too.
a family member that's gonna be in this? What are their issues? What are their prescriptions? And so it'll go through all of these questions. Are you risk averse? Are you risk, non-averse? Which way do you, it'll go through all of this, and it goes through multiple iterations and computations, and then it will pop out. And I hate that they didn't show it on here, but they'll actually show either in a graph form or a number form, whichever way you're a good thinker, like, because everybody thinks differently and sees things differently. And it'll show, if you choose this plan, then your premium is gonna be this much, but your expected costs from your doctor will be up to here. If you choose the next plan, your premium will be here, and your doctor cost will be up to here. So it really lays out visually, recommendations for which plan to choose.
I would just make a recommendation that either a 4 or 5 plan. And that would just be the thought.
What it
If
looks
we
like,
do that, excuse me, does that reduce our reserves even more?
Well, what I would have to do, because it's not like
That's what I worry about.
I can sit here and say it's gonna reduce the premiums a certain amount. Each plan has an actuarial value, and I would have to work with our consultant to determine, well, what percentage would one shift from one plan to the next, right? So we'd have to consider that, and then we'd also have to consider, we'd have to charge enough in each plan that we would, so I don't see the premiums going away. Like, I don't see an employee $0 premium in our forecast. I think we're unfortunately beyond that point. But we can look and see.
Is there a cost for Alex to us?
There is
Oh, this is what she's projecting.
$16 for employee.
And is that provided by the insurance? Who provides Alex?
So our insurance consultant will help set Alex up, and they work with a company called Jellyvision. So they will help us get that set up and running. And we will run the cost of Alex through the health insurance fund.
If they don't use it, we still get charged?
Yes, per employee
Yes,
who's
that's a
eligible.
key care 2,000,
Wow.
but I'm talking about.
So it's not cheap, but I think it
I
provides
guess you're right.
a
This is the same.
huge value moving to a two option.
Will we
Plans.
get results as to how many chose to use Alex? I mean, if 10% are using them and we're paying for 2,100 and 210 employees choose it, is it worth it?
Yeah, we'll find that out.
Well, getting back to the price, because I think Tim was asking about what he would like to see that number to be. So it looks like the Key Care 2,000 is about $20 more than what people are currently paying for the 1,000. Correct? Because the numbers I'm looking at, it's $623.98 for a family currently for a 12-month rate.
Oh, I don't have the 12-month rates up here.
Well, it looks like I got it right here. It's
Yeah.
$623.98, and it looks like the 2,000 puts you at $644.56 versus $868.44 for the new numbers on the 1,000. So I mean, you want to try to get that number down, because currently if it's 623, I mean, you're trying to get it down to where we're at now or a little bit lower by raising it.
That's, I mean, anything to help our employees.
I'm gonna have to work with the consultant to come up with what these are gonna look like. I just need to know what deductible levels you want me to look into for the third option.
Right, so we've got 1, 2, and 2, 4. 3, 6.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
5, 10 is awfully high.
Yep.
Okay,
I mean, a lot of people offer the 3-6.
I'd say
Yeah.
3, 6.
Yeah,
okay.
but let's try that.
I'll do that. I'll bring you results.
You know, I think it's important to just, $1 is not what $1 was even 2 years ago. So although these numbers are higher, and I appreciate that, everything's gone up. I mean, everything has gone up. So, you know, I'm not gonna get into the politics behind it, but it's obvious that we're not dealing with the same numbers that we were dealing with 2 years ago. So although, you know, we're gonna try to keep giving raises, we're gonna try to do everything that we can, but at the end of the day, we can only work with as much money as we have. So,
Okay.
Thank you, Susan.
wish you could still buy a cup of coffee for $1.
So
$2.50.
I'll look those up and bring them back at the next work session. Couple of changes that we have had. If you either want to pick up the short sheet or go to your PowerPoint, under revenues, I have shown eliminating the employee non-resident of the 25,418. I will need to add back the 14,2 as a cost for the general fund, since that's what you have decided that you want to do. So I'll have to add that back. I've got another 130,000 in here. So in our numbers, we have the payroll that I have presented to you. We have 3 instructional assistants that are used to help transition private day students on a 1-year basis back into the school division. And we get reimbursed from CSA for that. And so they're basically no cost. So I wanted to add the revenue that went with those IAs. The IAs are not, the positions are not filled unless they are working with the transition student. So it literally is a 1-for-1. We will get the revenue if we use the IA. So I wanted to add that revenue back in since it's in the expenditures. If you look to administration priorities, I had an error in the copier costs. I had added, there were some discussions and I had bumped that up to 82,000 through ongoing discussions, but the 23,192 was what was remaining as an unfunded priority from the prior year. So we put that back down to the 23,192.
That's a lot better than 80,000, I think was the numbers that we had.
Moving on to page 16, under the special education department, we moved the preschool program manager contract over to not funded. Also, under the special education, evidently, I didn't add the extra 2 special education folks over under the priority request, and so those 2 numbers shifted. I had 6 in there instead of the 8, so I've shifted the 8 over. And then the Region 6 Autism Consortium will not be funded. They
Well,
will
it's called,
find funds
we're
in
gonna do it out
there.
of the grant, or we're gonna do it out of existing funds,
Yeah, they'll
Yes.
find the money in their
because we have to do it. So.
local for that. Then, so under finance, I feel like a broken record. I'm bringing back another request to add more money to the transportation fleet fund. I added 100,000 in here because we found that there are some minivans that are not on the fleet replacement fund.
Okay, you skipped ahead, okay.
I did.
right.
She's going
I'm
to the
going
yellows.
fast to get through just the changes.
I appreciate you going fast.
Sorry. So we added another 100,000 to the fleet replacement fund transfer so that we can start getting some of the mini buses that are located like at Burton Center for students in the replacement plan.
And these are literally mini vans, like for Burton has 2 to like get kids to places, and they have 2. This is not adding, this is like, we're trying to replace ones that are on their last legs, so we're trying to get that in Mr. Cagle's fleet replacement plan. Same thing with general transportation, where they have to pick up kids for individual situations. So the minivan replacement is something that is not currently built into the fleet replacement plan, but needs to be.
Okay, I appreciate you put that there.
And I think that's all the changes. And so at the end of the day, if you go to the last page, the changes that we made, there's $8,911 left on the plate. I will say that, although I'm not prepared to bring the General Assembly budget to you today, I did look at it, and it does look like they have brought forth an additional large amount of money that we might get. However, I still go back to, there are philosophical differences between the governor and the General Assembly right now, and so I'm still unsure which number to bring at the end of the day. So what we may want to end up doing is using the governor's budget to build our budget on, knowing that if we get more, we have the add back list, and then we can look at how much additional raise we could give, have those kind of set off to the side for our final budget. And that may not be something until, because I think they have 30 days before they reconvene, and so we're not going to have the final numbers, final governor's budget until after we adopt. And so we may want to just adopt with what we have and then look at a revision
Do you
later.
have any idea, based off our, I know they've got, the 2 came together, but the governor's got to sign off, and he'll probably take out some. Do we have any idea of where we're at in relation to what we've used for our?
So I ran the numbers over the weekend, and it looks like if the General Assembly budget was adopted, we get about $4 million more.
Okay.
And out of that, our proposed or recommended add backs, total, what, about $800,000, because we have go ahead and buy those multi-use vehicles for each high school. And that would go into that fleet replacement, but that's a one-time thing, so versus building up to that, we'd like to get all 5 for the schools if we could. But that'll be worked into the fleet replacement. So there's that, there's funding, there's additional IAs that are still hanging out there, the rest of the 15, and a couple of smaller dollar items. That's about 800,000. And, our recommendation would be to put, if we do get that kind of money, put every bit we can, back to trying to narrow that gap to our neighbors, because they're likely to get more money too, and I just don't want that gap to widen any. I'd love for it to narrow. I think you all share that.
So this would be over and above what we've already given, though,
Yes, sir.
right?
Yes, sir. Right now, we're at 3.75% overall with the step increase plus the scale shift. But we'd like to, do more than that if we can. So what would happen is, once the General Assembly and once the state gets all that worked out, we'd probably have to wind up and you'd have to adopt a revised budget you know, because we're not probably gonna know that before March 21st.
We have to
whatever it
adopt,
is.
yeah. Okay, thank you.
Bearing in mind, we have our health insurance issue too,
Correct.
right? Where we're gonna have to create a buffer, and we really don't know how that's gonna play out.
One thing, Ken, on a different note, 10 high school counselors from 200 to 210. I know the counseling is something that is a struggle right now. Would that be beneficial for us to try to find that $36,000?
Yeah, that's on the add back list.
So we pretty sure.
I
we'll
think as it stands right now, we're have every reason to think we can do everything on that add back list once the state does their thing.
That'd be great. I know
That's
they-
something that I was gonna mention too as well, Brent. I think that's important. I know that I've talked to Ms. Green at Northside, and she feels that that's something that really is something that would help quite a bit. And if there's any way to find that before we wait for the add backs, that would be nice too. Because it's not a large amount.
No, it's
We have
not.
to reduce something else, so.
Right.
Right. But definitely an important area that we want to make sure we're funding.
And the main thing that helps with, that increases their days by 10 days, that helps with summer enrollments and things of that sort. It's not going to impact their, you know, during the school year services, but it helps with those summer enrollments.
Well, anything we can do to take a little bit of pressure off of them too.
Sure.
People are sicker now. Life expectancy is going down too.
Wait,
That's all I have.
Are we finished?
That's all I have.
What?
I gotta go first. Yeah.
Anybody have anything for Susan? Questions?
Thank you.
Not to beat a dead horse on the insurance reserves, will that affect the audit that we get from Brown and Edwards at the end of the year and their recommendation if we do dip below that?
I don't
No.
think so.
Okay.
Everybody good?
I guess the question I have is, you know, we have another one of these scheduled for March 19th.
Do we need
You
that?
still need that?
I think I had some questions out regarding the tutoring program.
Okay.
With some money, but we can handle that on the side, and I had asked Mr. Williams if he could just get me a number, how much that is costing us per unit, an hour time. I think that's a great program. I think it's well worth it for our students. I think it serves a huge community of students. So I'd like to see us keep that in our budget. I'm just gonna say personally, I think the reviews that I've read and the feedback that I've gotten just from the students, I was asking some of them today on the tennis team, and they said, oh yeah, we use it, we like it.
And we have that built in currently.
And we have it built in, so I know there was some question about it, but I still think it's a worthwhile expense for our students.
So you want to keep the margin? Well, what is, after all that, what is that?
Well, I'd like to keep it, because there was some question as to whether or not we would take it out. Are you saying I'm very wordy today?
You are wordy.
I'm gonna go ahead and have him, I know
Yeah.
he has some numbers, he can present that.
Okay, you do?
And while he's coming up, you had asked if you need another work session. If you want me to present 3 rate structure. then-
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
If you'll have that, okay, yeah, fair enough.
So we'll keep the March 19th.
She thinks she can have that insurance information by then.
Okay.
No, that's okay.
Do you want me to leave it? on
Or maybe
there?
she
Just
could
in
just
case
give
I
it to
wanna
us.
plug in here.
Oh, she can't do it individually.
Part of it is, you know,
Yeah, it's the
come your
public,
regular meeting,
yes.
what are you comfortable with? Okay, here it is, you have to approve it, versus some of these pieces if you wanna discuss it further. It really comes down to that.
Thanks, Ben, for jumping in.
No problem. Happy to do it. And this, what you can see up here is the basically the sessions per month. You can see that you know, when we started the program, we had a pretty strong usership. Obviously, it goes down over the summer, went back up. We're starting to actually jump back up again. We've done another sort of PR push here. If you actually look at the you know, I think one of the questions I got was, how do we figure out the cost per student, the cost per session, the cost per hour? And that's a trick when you're trying to work all this out. One of the things that I looked at is, for example, February 2024, I was just over in the corner doing some math on this, and it was roughly in the neighborhood of about $20 per session. So if you look at the amount we spent on it in February versus the amount of sessions, 560, that's sort of the way it runs out. Now, if you're looking at it per hour, it looks pretty high, because the session might be anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes typically. Some sessions are longer, some sessions are shorter. So trying to determine average session length, that varies quite a bit. So determining an hour is really kind of a ballpark. And it can also change a lot based on your usage, your usage per month, because the higher usage, the lower per hour cost, et cetera. So, but in general, I think you can pretty safely say that depending on the month, between about $17 and about $24, $25 per session when they log in. Now, the kids that are using this, if you scroll down here, they're using it at all different hours. Remember, this is the program that is the just-in-time tutoring. And the just-in-time means I'm at home, or I'm at school and I'm working on something independently, and I'm not clear on it, and I've got a test tomorrow, or I've got an assignment due, or I'm doing my homework right now. And so those folks are logging in at all hours. We even have kids logging in the middle of the night. And so, I mean, literally the middle of the night. And even during the school day, if we have folks in study halls that are logging in during study halls and getting the extra help, if, for some reason their schedule doesn't line up with their teachers or something like that, it provides sort of a safety net for students. In that obviously we expect all of our teachers to be assisting with our kids, but in terms of being able to help them whenever they need it, when they're working on it, obviously that's not going to happen. So the key is that just-in-time element. So and that's really part of what we're paying for, is that being able to be instantly available at 11:30 at night after I've gotten home from a baseball game in Allegheny, and that's that's really what we're talking about here. And so anyway, and looking at by subject, most of the usage is in the math and the science. The math is at that 40.4, science is 17.5, and it really breaks out to where we were actually surprised based on this that the biggest users are actually the 8th graders, though. The 8th graders in writing primarily. We do a lot of writing in 8th grade, and the proofreading piece is used pretty regularly in the 8th grade, not just outside of school, but also during school. Some of the teachers actually use it to enable them to get feedback to students faster than they can provide it, because the feedback we're seeing, although they promise, I think, 72 hours, something along those lines, we typically see it back in about 12 hours, if not faster. We've had kids write essays and that afternoon, have the essays back and proofed. So what that does, it provides immediate feedback. The immediate feedback, actually research, that's just one of the most powerful elements of learning, is essentially that immediate feedback. If you can get feedback almost immediately, you'll really absorb that learning faster than if you got feedback 2 or 3 weeks later and it's not as meaningful anymore. So there's a lot of research that does support that. A lot of our kids at the upper levels, I saw some comments about some of the upper level kids using it, and that's absolutely true, because some of our upper level kids are actually some of our most stressed kids. If you go to any high school and you talk to the counselors, you talk about the anxiety that they're seeing right now among our children. That's uniform. It's not just, among one group or another, but some of our top kids put a lot of stress on themselves to essentially be perfect, because if you think about trying to get into a competitive university, nowadays you need to be pushing a 4.0 or above to get into some of the higher universities, even in Virginia. And so in order to do that, our kids are saying, okay, well, I cannot get behind in calculus, or I can't get behind in physics. And if I've got something coming up and I don't understand it, and maybe my teacher teaches it in a way that I'm kind of not grasping, I can get this extra help, and that's like a safety net behind these kids. And actually, I think leads to, a little bit of an alleviation of the anxiety piece. The other one is that, and this is more across the board in the math, is the usage is essentially designed to help the parents when the parents want to assist, but the parents don't know the math. Are you smarter than a fifth grader? That fifth grade stuff's hard. Well, think about when they're getting into the upper grades and they're getting into algebra 2 or pre-calculus or, those are the kind of things that the students are struggling. And it is so sad for parents to say, I'm sorry you're struggling, but I really, I'm not positioned to help you.
No, I don't know. I don't remember.
Yes, but frankly, in calculus, it might be I don't know, and so that's it's sort of a situation where where we're basically helping kids with having a little backup. Now, the other thing is that it's not uniform across. We need to do a better job of promoting it in some areas. The places that are hitting it the most, Northside High School is sort of our flagship. Northside High School, there's a couple things there. One, we've got a principal that's a cheerleader for it. She makes sure that the counselors really push it with the kids. She makes sure that that the new incoming kids get brought up to speed on it. And the other piece that I think is really powerful is that she's had some of their top kids. We've had TV come in and talk to some of them, but we've also had some of the top kids talking, when I say top kids, the top users, talking to other kids, and the word of mouth is the key. We can push it at the central office level, but in the end, the value of any program like this that's voluntary is going to be based on word of mouth. And if we can get positive student word of mouth, then that's sort of the big key there. So there's some places we obviously would like to see larger numbers, but and you'll see the numbers are a little bit higher at the high schools than they are at the middle schools. That's not a surprise. We don't have as much homework, et cetera, at the middle school level.
Real quick, there is concerning to me. I think. I kind of tend to agree with what your assessment was on promoting this. It looks normally numbers with Northside and Byrd kind of trend together, and I don't see that.
Yeah, I think that's pure promotion, and so I think that the key we need to do is, and I've talked to Evan about this over at the middle school, is being able to push this, and I think that's a conversation I'll have at the high school too, but. The high school's seeing a little bit better numbers, but I think the middle school could really jump. Definitely.
I think Cave has embraced it pretty well too. Look at Cave Middle and Cave High.
Yeah, pretty uniform too
Yeah,
between
and-
the two of those. And once they start using it, we found that they keep using it. They become power users of the system. The feedback we get is over 90% positive, meaning that once you use it once, you realize this is something that can help. So like I said, the feedback we get is good. The quality is good. Every once in a while we have an issue, but that's absolutely normal.
Is this something, Dr. Nicely, that maybe we should have our teachers kind of promote to the kids? I mean, have them log in the classroom and kind of see how it works. Because I mean, I know a lot of kids may not just want to feel like they're wasting their time, or I don't want to deal with having to complicated doing this or that to even get into it. So
I think you're exactly right. And they've done that, but it wouldn't hurt to do it again. And
yeah, I
to
think
establish that.
I mean, from your opinion, Ben, you feel like this is a very useful tool that is worth spending the money on, correct?
I do, and the other piece of this is that how much have we invested in programs that impact all students? We've done a lot of investment for students in terms of remedial investment, special education, et cetera. If you look at our Roanoke County budget, it's very much skewed in that direction. This is something that helps every kid, whether they're on one end or on the other. And so I think for the amount of money we're spending on it, given that, I would say that our ratio is still very much skewed the opposite direction.
Right. Now, next budget, because we're paying for the back end of this now, correct? Because we were able to use, was it ESSER funds? So next year, we're gonna have to prepare, I mean, because I believe it was about $500,000,
Yeah,
right?
what we're putting in the
This
budget-
one's, no, this one, the actual contract, if we go 6 through 12, is roughly about 130 on this one. But the tail end of the ESSER grant is gonna cover this through September.
I'm thinking of the one that was the live teacher.
You
The
are.
tutoring is what I was
Yeah.
thinking about.
You are.
Okay.
Now, this one has a live person at the end, at the end of it, but the other one is the high dosage. Now, the high dosage is very different in the sense that that's, structured long-term. And there's been a lot of moving pieces on the high dosage. Now, this is the just-in-time, but the high dosage, that was our brain fuse program, still is. But what we've had happen to us is that the state has come in with the all-in plan and provided essentially free high dosage for grades 3 through 8.
Okay.
So now we've got a high dosage system where I've got a ton of hours that we've already purchased out there, but those hours can be used in any year I want. And so what I'm doing is I'm taking those hours and setting them aside, using the state all-in money now, and when the state all-in money dries up, I've got those hours to come behind it.
Okay. Well, I think it's a great tool. I agree
Yeah.
with you, Cheryl, that it gives the kid an opportunity at home.
Well, I don't know too many reviews that are 95%. I mean, you just don't see that typically. So when you've got kids coming in 93, 95% consistently, I think it speaks for itself.
I think, to your point, Mr. Hudson, I think a good starting point to kind of relaunch some of the schools with the low usage is have the teachers do it in class, kind of get their feet wet with
their
it,
feet
have the
wet.
experience.
So that way they realize it's not complicated to log into and promote that.
Right.
I know they've got the advertisements for it up all over the place, but sometimes it's just about, like you
Kids
said,
just
just
doing
getting
it.
in and doing
Getting in there
it,
and
you
doing it.
know.
I like the fact that the 8th grade teachers are using it since they have that writing SOL.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd be great if more teachers did that.
I
To
agree.
get them to use it, and then maybe they'll keep using it.
I agree. And what we found this year is the reasons why some of them are not doing it as much is there's a lot of other competing programs that also proofread. Some of the AI programs now will proofread your paper for you and give you pretty, instead of a matter of hours, they'll give you a matter of seconds. And so we're competing with other programs out there on the proofreading side. So that's why some of that went down this year. Is some of the folks are actually doing a variety of other programs.
But math is the highest usage.
Math is definitely the highest usage, is 40%, and science is the next highest.
I don't feel so bad
8th
now.
grade writing is another big one.
Kids come home with math.
But I mean, you think about going back to your school experience, it's math and science. They're the ones that stressed you out. They're the ones where, and to be honest with you, there's some areas that we have some of the hardest time filling those positions too. And so it gives us a little bit of safety net as well.
Oh, thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Ben. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Does anybody have anything else? All right, meeting adjourned.